Hi, I'm Andrea Raleigh, and you're listening to Notes from That Writer Mom. Today, I'm reading you a piece called Split Screen: When Writing and Motherhood Collide. 2 summers ago, on a balmy Thursday afternoon in July, I was in the Blue Jays nightgown I would give birth in. It was almost dinner time. I was 9 months, less a day pregnant, with my first child, going into my 14th hour of early labor. Contractions arrived strong and steady, and everything I read about labor being wildly tiresome started to hit me. I bounced on a big silver ball in our bedroom, one of those oversized balls people use as a desk chair, and I stared at my reflection. Look at yourself in the mirror before you give birth. This is what my friend Ash suggested I do. Look at myself in the mirror before I gave birth, and then to do the same after. Really look at yourself, she said. You'll see 2 different people. I shrugged this off because the deep impact of an act like childbirth, which occurs every day to over 300,000 people according to the UN, eluded me. Surely such a common experience would be talked about if it had such an impact. Surely my mother, my grandmother would have told me. My cousins? My friends who have given birth? The deck was stacked against this advice Ash had gifted me. She tried to tell me. She talked about it. And part of me did not know how to believe her. I would soon understand why. The ways we talk and teach about birth are elusive, as if keeping information from birthing people will protect them, will keep us procreating. But birth in its entirety is a complex, raw, and powerful experience. In our patriarchal society, the ways we talk and teach about birth are commonly guided by individuals who have never experienced it. I understand now that it is crucial for birthing people to share their stories, to scream them into the world. These stories are primal and necessary. Pregnancy, labor, and birth, I have learned, is not an experience to be feared or turned off with medication where possible. For a birthing person to understand this in their thinking mind, and then on a molecular level, it must terrify a great many people. This is one of our greatest powers. Bouncing on that ball, I unintentionally caught my own eye in the mirror, and Ash's advice came back to me. I was surprised. My first thought, you're too late. You're already different. Ash was right. I started to shapeshift. A portal opened and I was wading through. I wondered if all birthing people experience this or if a certain level of self-awareness was required. Maybe I was experiencing the onset of pre-birth deliriousness. I didn't know exactly what was happening in my body. This was the start of my body taking over, and as I looked at myself in the mirror, I felt detached from my own reflection. I saw the fiercely independent, creative writer woman I had embodied up to this point disconnect herself from me. This did not feel like a choice, but rather as though something that was simply happening. You know the feeling when you start to do something big and scary and a bit risky, but you've come too far to change your mind? Imagine being harnessed into a bungee jumping rig down in Costa Rica, standing on the edge and deciding whether or not to jump. Okay, not a great analogy. You could simply unclip and walk away. The sunk cost fallacy doesn't apply in childbirth. There's only one option: jump. Thankfully, my body knew exactly what to do. I'd never experienced that before, my body leading the charge. This was part of the shift, the morphing. I can draw a line in the sand of my life for you. On one side is a blank canvas, a blinking cursor against a white page with every decision free to be made at any moment. On the other, motherhood. It is that clear the day I disappeared. It is that clear the day I was remade. Before becoming a parent, I worried this would happen. I would become the ghost of myself in favor of being a good mother. I was worried because I didn't slip into parenthood in an easy way, nor by accident or by fate. It took us 4 years to get pregnant and a lot of science. In the months prior to my pregnancy, I began to tell myself motherhood was not in my future. I believed I didn't have a choice. You were brought here to write, and that would be it. You are not meant to be a mother. When I found out I was pregnant, my writer self panicked. I'd struck a deal. In the depths of my despair, I promised to give up writing if I got to be a parent. I'll be a good mother, I promised. I'll be 100% invested. The idea was insane. Almost immediately, I flaked. While I was committed to being the present, tender, and joyful parent that I desired, I clawed at my creative identity. I begged for it to stay. Okay, perhaps I'm not a Virginia, Edith, or Emily, I thought. These were all writers who had never had children. But maybe I'm a Sylvia? For a long time, I could only think of one writer whom I knew bore children, Sylvia Plath, who left a full breakfast on the table for her two kids before she died by suicide. I made a note to research writers who bore children. Turns out there are many. Of course there are. I decided to be one of those moms who wrote an entire book in her notes app while her babies fell asleep. Spoiler alert. So far, at least, I'm not. I decided I would not be ambivalent. I would not be neglectful to my children nor my work. I can have both, I reasoned. I have to have both. Before I entered motherhood, I wanted to hear from writers who were already caregivers, who were already mothering. I had done a nosedive reading literary interpretations of published works by writer moms like Plath and Maya Angelou. I pored over their words, how they wrote about their children and their mothers and being a mother and being human. I wanted to peek over the fence to see what awaited me. I wanted to know what modern women writer mothers were saying and feeling. So I attended a generative workshop called Motherish Work, hosted by Charity Yoro. Maybe there was a way I could plan for this. Maybe there was an elusive pathway that would help me compartmentalize these two roles so I could succeed at both. But for the entire workshop, I heard the same questions repeated. How can I write when I am so busy mothering? My children need so much from me. How is a creative life even possible? I saw giant SOS symbols across their hearts. It worried me, the state of motherhood. I left knowing that mothers were overworked, overwhelmed, and overstimulated. I took one note that entire workshop. Write anyway. This was all I scribbled in my notebook, and as I look at it now, as I stare at those words, I see a little space between the second word. Write anyway. Write anyway. Was this intentional? Did I mean to put that space there? Society loves for mothers to feel confined, to feel as though their sole purpose is to raise the tiny humans they bore, birthed, and became new for. This is all that's required of a mother, right? Endless, unconditional love for her child. But there's a missing piece here. Mothers need a return to themselves, a return to the self. Perhaps my mother, my grandmother, my cousins did not tell me this because they have yet to return. I don't know. Without a return, a mother might be left in the ether on the far side of the portal as just that, a mother, with no self. It turns out I was wrong about what was going to happen. I would not become the ghost of myself in favor of being a good mother. In the same way that love expands and is boundless, I am able to embrace two full-time identities, the writer and the mother. The writer mother, the mother writer. I am that writer, mom. Writing is different now. Of course it is. Deep work as a full-time parent is mythical. The chaos of parenthood is demanding. One moment I work to articulate these thoughts, and the next I'm swapping out an entire dresser of clothing for the next size up because my baby had a growth spurt overnight. While I once wrote uninterrupted for hours, I now write for a minute or 10 or 30. I write a line, I write a thought, I write a paragraph. I finish my thought with one hand on the keyboard while bouncing a baby on my hip. Sometimes I finish the thought 7 hours later or not at all. It's writing and laundry and dim lights and nap time and teethers and tidying and shushing and writing and pausing to hold the baby, to feed the baby, kiss the baby, listen to and make the baby laugh, and then typing with one finger to finish the thought I started to articulate hours upon hours earlier. I'll take it. Writing is writing. No one can tell me a writer cannot be a mother, that a writer cannot write or will not have time for her own voice. We have time. We will make the time. This untruth that a mother cannot write or will not have time for her own voice does a wild disservice to a writer mother's soul. To write is to mother in a way, and to mother deeply and presently and tenderly is to craft a life made of the most complex stories that have ever existed. We can have both. I know this now. We have to have both. I keep thinking of Geppetto from Pinocchio. how he was swallowed by the whale while searching for a part of himself that he crafted with his own two hands. You know, if I'm swallowed by the whale, if I'm swallowed by motherhood, I'm not going to be afraid either. I'll be there, hunched over a desk in the depths of a blue giant, writing. That's where you can find me. Thanks for listening to Notes from That Writer Mom. If today's story resonated with you, please share it, especially with that friend who's also tracking their word count and everything else for the little humans in their life. I'm Andrea Raleigh. Thanks for being here and for making space for both of yourselves at once.